Welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News. UNN is the official news channel for CARE. If you haven't heard of CARE before, it stands for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth, and that is what we are focused on, getting the word out to people that everything is changing right now. We discuss the real news, what's really happening in the world, and not just on this planet, but elsewhere, because we are all connected and incredible things are happening. And we want to let you know that as quickly as possible. The light has overcome the dark. We are just now dealing with some remnants out there, and they are even on their last legs. So this is a really exciting time to be alive, to be on this planet. It's incredible. And we have a newscast that's released through our online distribution platform every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I would encourage you guys to check that out. You can find us at unitednetwork.tv. It does require a membership, but it's pretty inexpensive, and you get a lot of other content too. We've got health and wellness videos and original series. But the reason we do this podcast is because we want to run down, hence the name, some of the stories that we talk about, because it's important to get the word out there as much as possible. Yes, we have a membership platform and, we need to pay the bills. That's why we have that. But at the same time, really our mission at UNN is to get the word out about what's happening on this planet. And that's both locally, and we do that through our field messengers. Those are everyday people, just like you, that are reporting on what's happening in their community, because we trust that more than what mainstream media is telling, us that's happening in your community. So our field messengers go out, they record with their phones. We've got a production team that puts it together. It's awesome. Then we actually just added a segment, as some of you may recall, I said in our last podcast episode, about the new Earth and where we're going with things, because this is what really gets me excited. Yes, there's some amazing things happening on our planet, but where we're taking the planet is incredible. We also have regional stories, and we try to share some news that happens throughout the world in various regions as it relates to the people. Because we're kind of done focusing on what the government and non-governmental organizations, their sound bites, their people that get up there and just yada, yada, yada. We're done with that. It means nothing. They're all puppets anyway. So we don't care what they're saying. But there are stories still out there that impact the public. And so, we want to share those stories. And then we have what we call the World Situation Report. There's a lot of talk, not only about things that are happening behind the scenes on our planet, but things that are happening off planet. And we'll have a couple sound bites from the World Situation Report in today's podcast episode. And you may be wondering, especially if you're new here, how do they have this information? What are they, are they omnipresent? I mean, what do they have that other people don't have? Well, we have access to the highest security clearance on the planet. It's higher than the government. It's the highest you can possibly have. So we understand when things are happening before everybody else really does. We don't have to get our information from a third party, because we can get it from something called the Alpha system, which gives us everything we need to know. So that's how we have the information. And I will say some of this may be surprising to you. You will not hear some of the things that we talk about, especially when we get into the World Situation Report. You will not hear that information anywhere else unless they stole it from us. We are the original source on this information, because quite frankly, the people that have been controlling this planet for a really long time, they don't want that information out. Now, most of the people at the top, they're all gone, okay? But this kind of trickles down, and the people that think they're in charge now, and that changes, we'll get to that more in the World Situation Report, they don't want this information out either. They don't want you to know how powerful you are, how strong you are, that you truly are a sovereign being, because then they lose their control. And trust me, we have been on a slave planet for a very long time. We just didn't realize it. We were in our own personal matrix, on our own little hamster wheels, going round and round and round, not even realizing what life could really be like. But I don't want you to take my word for this. When we talk about stuff, and there's some terms and stuff that are going to come up today, research it. Look online. Research the terms that we're talking about. Stop believing people just because, they appear to have some sort of authority. That's how we got into this problem. We didn't do our own research, and we thought that our governments had our best intention. Whoop, that was a big mistake, wasn't it? Think critically. Ask questions. All right, so any announcements? The only announcement I have is that today was a really crazy news day. And you're going to hear about it more in the World Situation Report. So today, the title for today's episode is all about the emergency broadcast system alert that went off in some places in the U.S. today and was supposed to trigger all this kind of stuff. And it made for kind of a crazy tech news day, if that makes sense. So obviously it takes a lot of technology to put on a show, and there's a lot of people that are involved in putting our news out. It's certainly not just me, and there's a lot of people. I would say 20 plus people make this happen, and they're all around the world. And we had so many tech issues today. It was insane. We had to stop recording multiple times, but we persevered. We made it through. Our poor editors, big shout out today to Raquel and Zolt, who had to go through and edit the news because, we were having so many problems. Microphone problems, my camera wasn't working. Holy cow, it was a mess. So it was a crazy news day, guys, but we did get through it. And let's talk about some of the stories that we shared on the news today. So here's the rundown for Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. So our newscasts always kick off with our field messenger reports. Again, these are everyday people just like you that are grabbing their camera, their iPhone, whatever phone they have, and they're going out and recording video, sometimes interviewing people, just, trying to figure out what's happening in their community. And then they send that information to us. We have a production team that helps put it all together. And it's really incredible what we can do together. Our first field messenger report comes from Robin, and she is in South Africa, and she is reporting on the flooding. Now, interesting kind of background here. I wasn't even aware this flooding was going on until last Friday. I sat down with Carrie Kay. Some of you may know Carrie Kay. So she has been a guest on our shows in the past, including the news. And she was telling me that she didn't have any power, or actually, no, sorry. She didn't have any water because of these storms. And I was like, gosh, we have not been reporting on any storms. What's going on here? I looked online, couldn't find any information on this really. So this was in southern Africa, like the southern portion of South Africa. And they had all the storms, and there was flooding as a result. This happened over the equinox weekend, which is kind of like the last week of September. And they still don't have water because the pumps and things like that they needed, it just destroyed their infrastructure. And I was talking to Carrie Kay because we were supposed to record, and we did end up recording. And she's like, I don't have any water. Like, her dishes and stuff were stacking up. I'm sure they were using bottled water or something like that, but it was crazy. And, I couldn't find anything online. And I was like, gosh, where are all the stories? And so thank goodness, Robin, thank you so much for doing a report on this, because this is a classic case of a story that should have been shared because it was really devastating for the people in the South Africa area, the southern South Africa area. And I couldn't find any information about it online to share with you guys on the news. So anyway, she takes some amazing video. A lot of things are flooded. This happened in an agricultural region. So you can imagine, things getting washed out. That's not really a good thing for agriculture. And just updates us on the status of the situation. So that's our first field messenger report. The second one is about living off-grid. And this comes from Keisha Beth in the UK. And she does a lovely little interview with a friend. I'm going to say a friend, an acquaintance, Libby Laws. And Libby has an interesting story because she was a DJ before COVID. And then because of COVID, she ended up losing her job. She didn't want to get a vaccine. And she ended up buying some land. I mean, totally changing her life in the most incredible way. And so Keisha Beth interviews Libby about her off-grid journey and what's happening and her plans for the future. And I think she is, having people use the land now somehow through Airbnb, but she's got, plans to use the land for medicinal purposes, like everything all natural and healthcare products and things. It's just amazing when you stick to your morals and your principles, just like Libby did. She's like, I'm not taking this vaccine. This is insane. Her life did a 180, right? Totally different. And she just seems so at peace with everything, so loving, so full of life. So congratulations to you, Libby. And again, it's just a testament about what we're capable of when we get off of that hamster wheel. That maybe that's not where we're supposed to be moving forward. I hope not. I hope everybody gets off their hamster wheel. But it was just incredible what Libby was able to do. And our third field messenger report is about this incredible woman in Uganda. And this is from, honestly, I don't like to pick favorites, guys, but one of my favorite field messengers is Mwanda Michael, because he just has the most lovely spirit. I don't know if you guys see this, for those of you who watch the news, if you can feel that whenever, he does these field messenger reports. But he talked to this lady a young woman who decided to plant these trees on deforested land. And she started doing this 2 years ago. And now there's like a little forest. And this was just one woman who knows what it was really inside of her. But, she saw this land that was devastated and all the trees and stuff were cut down, and she wanted to do something about it. She's been doing this for 2 years. And now, the report shows it, but there's luscious green everywhere in this area. And those seeds have turned into a little forest, which, again, just a great testimony to what one person can do. In our news section on the news called The New Earth, so we just launched this on Monday. This is the second day we've done this, and we're going to keep doing this moving forward. This is about how we live in the new world. There's a lot we haven't been told about ourselves, about how the planet works, all these inner workings and, who we are as humanity and what our bodies are capable of doing, and energy and frequency and all. There's just a million topics to explore. So we're just scratching the surface of this. We have an interview with an amazing lady. I absolutely adore her. Her name is Zenka Caro. She's actually the founder of LightNet, and you can check them out at lightnet.org. So a colleague of mine, actually it was someone from the GEAC, told me about LightNet. And I went on their website. I'm like, oh, this is really, really cool. So essentially, they create, I'm just going to use my own terminology here. This isn't like official marketing language for LightNet. They create these little sandboxes, quantum sandboxes for us to play in. Now, what I mean by that is you have these concepts, and it's all related to, quantum physics and manifestation and all of that. But our bodies, we have this incredible ability to do things. And, like the power of intention, which is what today's segment is all about, and group intention. And so LightNet creates these situations, these they call them experiences. These experiences where people all over the world, you don't have to be in a certain location, but you can get together through like a Zoom or like some sort of online meeting. And you can practice these principles with other people. And they do this in groups of 8. So today's segment was all about the power of 8, because I asked Zenka, I'm like, well, why do you do this in groups of 8? And there was a whole meaning behind it. And it led us to doing this specific segment. And so I'm not going to, spill the beans on this. You got to, watch the interview. It's about 5 minutes long. But it's about group intention, and how when you gather together with other people, how powerful you really are. And there's something about the power of 8. So check that out. It's fascinating. We also talk about music therapy. And I'm sure we're going to dive into this in, a lot of different angles. But today's story was about dementia care and how elderly people are benefiting from music therapy, because music is an incredible communication tool. Now, in the past, music has been used against us. You guys have heard of the negative frequencies and all of that to completely change our moods and, for the worse, all that. But it can also be used for good. And so when we're talking about the elderly, a lot of times the elderly can't communicate. Maybe they can't speak for whatever reason, or their thought process and their mind, it's just not how it used to be. And so using music is a great way to communicate when words aren't possible. And so we have this segment on this. We actually go through, like, if you were to try to communicate someone with dementia through music, how could you do that? So it's pretty interesting. We also talk about living near green spaces. Now, I think most of us, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you know that it's good to get out in nature. Reconnecting with nature is one of the best things you can do. It relieves stress. It's just incredible. So living near green spaces, that just makes sense, right? Technically, you're closer to nature. I mean, green space doesn't necessarily mean like out in the wilderness, okay? There's even places in New York City considered, where they've got green spaces. But this study was done that says if you live near a green space, it can slow your biological aging by 2.5 years. You can actually be 2.5 years younger, 2.5 years younger if you live within 3 miles of this type of green space. They said 30% green coverage. I'm not really sure how they come up with that, but 30% green coverage, which makes sense, right? And they attribute this to physical exercise. So if you're closer to these types of areas, maybe you'll get out a little bit more. The social interactions, which I think is something that we don't really think a lot about, but we are social creatures to the max, okay? This is why solitary confinement is such a punishment, because that's not a good thing for humans at all. And doing all of this, so living closer to these green spaces, it's actually shown to reduce dependency on medication as well, isn't that what we're trying to do? We're trying to get rid of all this synthetic crap, and that's what it is, right? I mean, it's killing us, okay? It's toxic. So we need to get rid of that stuff and come back to nature. So live near green spaces. That's the moral of the story. And the third story that we cover is about this family in India, specifically the dad. The dad is Dr. Rao, and he has a PhD in plant breeding and genetics. And he has this whole, I'll call it a business, where he is encouraging people. He's doing this research, and he's basically bringing back these indigenous plant species that have almost gone extinct in India. And he's using natural farming techniques, which is incredible. And it's better for everything, for the plants, for the environment. And it's even less costly than these other fertilizers and things like that, and all this fancy stuff that really has chemicals and nasty stuff in it. So he's a testament, again, going back to more of this natural living. And he's even found that these indigenous plants, these seedlings, that he's fostering here, are naturally resilient to harsh weather and diseases. So again, getting back to our roots, getting back to nature, getting back to the way things were meant to be. Everything gets easier when you do that. In our regional news, it used to be called world news, but now we're kind of breaking things up according to region. We have kind of 3.5 stories I'm going to go through. Really 3 stories, but then I'm going to briefly mention a couple other things. So the first story is about a media raid that's happening right now in India. There is a clampdown happening right now on news and journalists that are critical of the government. Isn't that interesting? A company called NewsClick has had several journalists' homes raided. And the claim is that NewsClick was receiving funds for Chinese propaganda, which they have completely denied. Because, the government has to have a reason to target these people. So they're saying that they're getting money, from the Chinese and, they're pushing out all this propaganda. NewsClick says that is not true. So there's this case now. It is being registered under the anti-terrorism law, one of their laws, and it's been known to lead to long pre-trial incarceration. So, this is just the government's way of trying to get people to shut up. And, we've seen this in other countries as well. This is not new, but I just feel like it's more out there now. It's more in our faces. Now, thankfully, NewsClick, there haven't, been in any arrests So no one's been arrested. No one's hanging out in jail or prison or anything like that. So we'll wait and see what happens with this. But, this is just the government not wanting to be criticized, which is insane because that's the whole point of journalism, is to provide the truth, right? Get the word out there, to not pick sides. And it sounds to me like they're doing their job, and the government's like, why are you doing your job? You're supposed to be promoting us. Yeah. Well, more and more people are, raising their frequency, waking up, whatever term you want to use. And doesn't seem like everyone's going along with the program anymore, which is really encouraging. Next story. In Ghana, there was a protest, and they're specifically protesting their central bank. They say that they have undergone all of this economic hardship. They are blaming the central bank leadership for what they're calling the worst debt crisis in years. Now, we know the central banks, this is a form of control. And there have been wars over, why isn't there a central bank in your country? You have to have a central bank. So this was a method of control, of stealing people's money, and it's not the way the financial system should be set up. And now people are calling them out on it. Apparently, the central bank in Ghana promised economic indicators, right? Oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. That would lead to better incomes for the people as well as purchasing power. None of that is happening. Oh, newsflash, guys, the central bank lies. And people have not seen any kind of improvement, and they're protesting. They are struggling. They have really high living costs, and unemployment is really high. So we've got that going on in Ghana. The short stories that I wanted to mention, there's actually just two quick updates on some strikes that are going on. The first one just started today. It's actually in my neck of the woods. California healthcare workers strike. So Kaiser Permanente has about 75,000 people that are striking right now in Southern California. And it's not just them. I mean, we are hearing about strikes all over the place. We still have the auto workers strike that's going on here in the U.S. And everyone's kind of complaining about, and rightfully so, the same things. We don't have enough workers, so you're running us ragged, basically. You're not paying us, enough money. And you're taking advantage of us in multiple ways. And so I just wanted to provide this really quick update. Now we've got healthcare workers striking. The auto workers are still striking over the same stuff because people are fed up. They deserve to be treated better. And that is where we're going. It's like our soul or our spirit knows. Okay, it's time to move on. Come on, guys. Get with it. Let's go. And our final story in regional news, I found interesting. So Walmart is now saying that they are not requiring nearly as many college degrees for certain jobs. They say they are moving towards skills-based hiring, which, oh, hallelujah. I mean, honestly, why were we so dependent on having a college education, period? We know there are umpteen million problems with the academic world. Okay, whether you're talking about elementary school, high school, all the way up through college, you pay an arm and a leg and then you're indebted and then you can't do the things you want to do in life. It's all part of the slave system. So, I'm glad that Walmart is saying this, but I kind of want to just raise a big sign and say, duh, why haven't we been hiring based on people's skill set all along? Why did we have to have this little diploma thing? It's a rhetorical question. I know the answer, right? Again, it's a slave system. But come on. So yay, thanks for showing up to the party. You're a little bit late. But the good news is this is gaining traction with a lot of other corporations. So not just Walmart, but IBM is starting to do this skills-based hiring. Google is starting to do this. Now, they claim that they're trying to provide a level playing field. I feel like that's just a marketing point. I just feel like they see that the whole system is coming down. The whole house of cards is falling apart. And I do see some corporations and places trying to get ahead of that. Like, okay, we don't want everything to fall apart. We don't want our whole corporation to go under. So, let's start doing the things we should have been doing all along. So thank you, Walmart. Moving on to our World Situation Report with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. Again, guys, this is just one of those crazy news days, like I said earlier, where we had to add a story last minute. We had to add the California healthcare workers strike last minute. But even beyond that, that made things a little bit crazy at the beginning part, right before we started recording. But then so many tech issues. And I remember Kim kept, checking on us because, she comes on the newscast, but it's later in the newscast. So sometimes she'll check in, see where we're at because, normally, let's say, it would only take us 30 minutes to record before she came on, but now, it's taking a lot longer. So she kept checking in. And I was like, my camera's not working, my microphone's not working, nothing is working. And she would check back in and see how we were doing. And she's like, yeah, they are throwing everything at us right now. So this is one of those days that we were completely under attack. Spiritually, it was affecting all of our equipment. And it was just a crazy day. It took us so long to record the news. In fact, at one point, right before the whole EBS alert went out, I think it was like 10 or 15 minutes prior, we checked in with Kim because we were getting ready to, the next thing would be to record the World Situation Report. And she told us, she's like, we're going to shut down everything for 50 minutes. So we shut down our phones. We shut down my iPad, anything electronic I had. I actually went outside to where our electrical box is that, controls all the power and everything. I shut everything down. That little master switch that shuts everything down. That's what I did for 50 minutes. And then I was like, I shut everything off. Now I don't even know what time it is because we needed to record the World Situation Report, but it needed to be after she was running all of, these programs to get rid of all the interference and stuff. I was like, I don't even know what time it is to turn everything back on. So that led to, the news getting out a little bit later today. But let's talk about this EBS alert, the electronic BS alert. Just kidding. Emergency Broadcast System alert. When they first started hyping this up, I thought it was just to cause fear because we know that they do not have access to the programs, the Omega system and the dark AIs that they used to have access to really cause damage on this planet. They don't have access anymore. So I was like, well, what is this stupid EBS alert? I mean, the White Hats have been talking about it forever, but they must have really been targeting the younger generations because my kids knew all about this. And I was like, nothing's going to happen. They don't have access to anything. I'm trying to explain everything to them. And kids, they're like, Mom, how do you know this stuff? So I didn't think anything was going to come of this. I'm actually really surprised that we shut down everything, but it was really just precautionary. So in the World Situation Report, Kim explains how all this came about and what was really happening behind the scenes. And it's kind of funny because the little alerts that everybody got, first of all, I didn't even get mine. I don't know. My phone's special somehow. I didn't get an EBS alert. Even after I powered up my phone, because it was actually turned off, when it was supposed to go out. But I still didn't get the alert. Anyway, come to find out, they ended up using 1930s technology to get this EBS system, this alert out. And no wonder not all phones got it. It's from the 1930s. So, we say this stuff to you guys because we don't want you to be living in fear. I mean, they are literally using the oldest technology out there. And I don't even know what they're trying to do with this. It makes so little sense. But Kim explains what's really going on with the EBS and why they thought that something was going to come of this today. And it has to do with this balance that the planet was supposed to have between light and dark consciousness. And if the planet got too light, then it would trigger certain things to happen to kind of bring it down a little bit, because that was the idea. Let humanity, let anyone here that's here on the planet, all beings, have free will and let them make their own decisions. So good things happen, bad things happen, but it kind of ends up in the middle. The problem is, the lower astral, our beings from the lower astral didn't want that. They didn't want to play nice with the light side. So it ended up being all dark. And it kept getting progressively more and more dark. So there were these systems that were put in place. Now our planet is getting lighter and lighter, and we're finding these remnants, these technologies kind of go off, kind of like a dead man switch kind of thing. It has nothing to do with the deep state other than they found out that this could happen on this date and tried to trigger all this fear, hoping that fear would aid them in them somehow getting access to the Omega system again and, then access to the financial system apparently was their plan. None of it worked. So here is Kim explaining all the craziness behind today's EBS alert.
So let's talk about this alleged October 4th event, We're All Gonna Die program.
Yes.
Now, it turns out, so you keep looking and you keep looking and you keep looking because, there's got to be something behind it.
Right.
So there was something remaining on planet Jupiter and planet Mars. The system was meant to do was to create the balance between light consciousness and dark consciousness on the planet. Somehow, probably in some old text or some old book somewhere, they knew this would happen. And so they set all of this up for this day.
Okay.
Now, those locations on Earth, which obviously are not functioning in the manner in which they were intended behind the scenes anymore, would have been an ancient telescope. It's actually called an ancient telescope in Beijing. It was set up in 1444. So you can look that up. Also, and I know this is going to sound funny, but in English, it's called the Huge Fast Telescope in China. It is the largest observatory in the world.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States, we had the Green Bank Telescope in West Virginia. In Ukraine, we had the, I'm going to say this wrong, Yevpatoria Telescope. That's Yevpatoria in English. In Puerto Rico, we had the Arecibo, it's spelled Arecibo, observatory. And those were the main sites that this whole system through the moon and a few other things were supposed to connect to on this day. Well, we had disabled all of that stuff earlier, like, a while ago. But the concern was, what they tried to do when they thought it was their time. Mm-hmm. So by around, I would say, probably about 9 a.m. my time, so about 11 o'clock Eastern time, about 3 hours ahead of time, they let us have it. To tell you how bad it is, they tried to fire up CERN again. They tried to fire up the Joint European Torus, also called JET for short. The NSA resorted to using old surveillance lines prior to the installation of Echelon from 1971. And if you are in America, and there's many other things, many other things, they also had a plan for our electric grids today, using some old semi-functional Omega lines. Also, if you've been seeing dams exploding, I guess you would say, or malfunctioning, and waterways malfunctioning, and excessive flooding, and those types of things, you can thank an old line that was coming from Omega for that they still had access to. So it was still causing some damage. So that is over now as well. So and then how we got that FEMA message, if you are in the United States, do you want to know what they had to do to get it out?
What did they have to do?
They had an old, so you know how when you're watching TV, if you're in the United States, it's probably in other parts of the world too, sometimes it'll interrupt, it go beep, 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 and it will say, this is a message from the emergency broadcast system. There is potential flooding in your area, or whatever it is. Well, they used to have one during World War II for radios. Okay. That would interrupt a radio broadcast and put out information regarding the war or any kind of dangerous situation and updates, and that's how they would do it. So this actually was something from, I think it was 1936 or 1939, and it was still stagnant, not functioning underneath Norfolk, the base in Norfolk. And that's how they actually managed to get that signal out to you. It had no negative frequencies. We're not all going to die. It's not going to activate graphene oxide in your body, all of those types of things. I was mainly concerned today about maybe a power surge or more dams going out due to the fact that we had some German jets over from a private military in the San Diego base. Love that San Diego Navy base. And they had been doing a lot of surveillance on some dams that are around Mount Shasta. So I was like, why are they doing this? And so that's what it ended up being. It was a byproduct of all of this. And, they had prepared to basically burn this country to the ground today. And they tried, I got to say, they Langley 5, Etal, definitely gave it a go with everything they had. And therefore, I was very, very busy until we got rid of everything they had. But you know what? I'm kind of proud of myself. And it's not just myself, it's my little team. And because it's me against millions of them. They were in Germany today. They were in Russia today. They were in, China. They were all over the place today. They were in UK with the jet. I mean, they were, and we won in just a span of a couple of hours.
Wow.
So you got a little message. Congratulations. You are now, you were, it's not there anymore, but you are now the recipient from a message from a radio machine from World War II. Wow. That's pretty cool.
How nostalgic.
How nostalgic. We should probably screenshot that.
So there you go. Kim and I having a little bit of fun with this whole thing because it's so ridiculous. They are relying on 1930s technology to cause fear in the hopes of this system that they never ran or really knew much about was going to somehow help them, but it's been disassembled. It's not even connected to Omega. Omega is not even a thing anymore in the multiverse period, this dark AI system. So give it up, guys. Please, let's just move forward with the restoration plan. You have been defeated. I can't even count how many times. And you're bankrupt. You have no money. So as Kim mentioned earlier in that report, Langley 5 is now in charge. Okay? Kind of, sort of. At least they're the ones that are claiming they're in charge right now. Because the people that were truly at the top of this giant pyramid are gone. So now you've got these people vying for control, truly like Game of Thrones style, and, probably just as violent too, as Game of Thrones was. So Langley 5 really is part of the Order of the Black Sun, which is really tied more to the Republican Party than the Democratic Party here in the U.S. And that's why you're seeing all this activity right now with the Speaker of the House. So for those of you who don't know, here in the U.S., our Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, for the first time in history, was voted out. And he just got the seat at the beginning of the year. So, na, hey, goodbye. That did not last very long. And behind the scenes, Kevin McCarthy made a bunch of promises that I'm sure his bosses, his handlers told him to make that he did not follow through on. I'm sure it was, I'll give you this much money and this much money and this much money, and nobody has any money. So they ousted him. It's not really just about Kevin McCarthy, though. It is about the whole government not having any money. So Langley 5 is now in charge, so they say. And they reached out to Kim. But not in a, hey, let's work together kind of way. For those of you who don't know, Kim is the trustee on the Global Repository, which is where all of the new money comes into the system for all of humanity. And so there's trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in there, and it will continually resupply itself. So this is where new money comes into the system, which is desperately what the government needs. So instead of playing nice with Kim, they decided to make some threats. And the threats didn't even really make a lot of sense. Take a listen.
So the threats came in last night. Threat number one, we are going to crash the market tomorrow. They were going to burn our waterways. They were going to do all this to the electric grid. They were going to send, EMPs through the grid. They had big plans for all of us. And every single bit of it actually failed. But they were going to crash the markets today. They thought that was a good idea. They said they still have access to back doors, which they should have checked before they opened their mouth and threatened the person that runs the quantum computer system. Because I know you don't. So that's not really a threat. We can throw that guy aside. Next, we also have been threatened. So this is Langley 5's response, to not getting anywhere. And so now they said that anyone who tries to get any money from us, predominantly, I think that they're threatening the operative section, but, probably could extend to everybody. You got to take this into account. They are going to come after. Now, there's a little flaw in that plan. Number one, if all of the operatives got contracts and money from us, who is going to answer your phone call and come after us? Are you coming after us? They're like 80 years old. I mean, I could probably get on my dog and ride away and be fine, If the military is not taking any orders and instructions from you, what are you going to do now? Are you going to drone all of us? I mean, you're going to drone millions and millions of people? Probably not, because, even that drone operator needs a paycheck at this point. So, is the threat real? Yeah, it's a very real threat, so there's got to be extra precautions, put in place to make sure that everybody is okay. And, we kind of all know how to do that on our side of it. The next phone call we got is, will I endorse McCarthy for president?
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
I just got quiet for a minute. And I said in an extremely loud voice, are you kidding me? And I said, the house is burning down and you're sitting here asking me if he can be the host of our next party. I'm like, we're not even going to have a house.
No. There's
going to be no government. It doesn't make any sense. So I said a lot of other things and, explicit words and kind of told them, well, you better get your stuff together. Next, we have the Trump hearings going on in New York. We also have a person, we have Tom in New York as well, and they would like to meet with us and discuss endorsing his presidency.
The dead guy's presidency.
Yes. So if my head wasn't already spinning around with smoke shooting out my ears, that's a good picture for you. I painted. Over McCarthy, now you want me to do this to the dead people. No! You got bigger problems. Huge, incredibly huge problems. And when the credibility of the people that are currently attempting to run the Republican Party and the other people over there across the pond in the UK, namely Rothschild, et al., are trying to run the Democratic Party, you can clearly see that both are kind of losing it. So we may endorse somebody from the birthday party for president. That's possible. We can create our own because clearly you guys want to have those ones, you can have them because you're making a mess.
Wasn't that Kanye West's party?
Yeah, why not? He started it. He got it registered. He's a good friend of Trump. They let it go in all the states. It's still out there. No one canceled the birthday party. Did you cancel the birthday party? No. No. So, maybe this country needs a birthday party for a rebirth, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. If not, then, we go it alone without governments in totality. And we're okay with that either way. That was actually a question that the Treasury Department asked. They asked if I was willing to let the United States government fall. Well, first they said bankrupt, and I said, oh, you already are. that you already are. We already did that. And they said, no, I mean completely go broke. And I said, yep, sure am. Because they thought that if they put enough pressure on me from that side, that I would cave and not let the government fall. But you are sadly mistaken. And that goes for all governments in all countries everywhere in the world. You either play our way or you don't play at all. And I'm okay either way. The people will survive. We will build our own roads. We'll build better schools. We'll do all that stuff all by ourselves. So yes, we're perfectly fine with that. To answer your question, person that called from the Treasury Department.
You know, it just amazes me when Kim was talking about the different threats that were being made. And will you endorse, Kevin McCarthy for president or, Trump? Or I'm just like, these people have no idea the reality of their situation. Why would you care who is going to be president of a government that's not going to exist? I mean, sometimes it's so frustrating. I mean, it's amazing being on this side and having access to the information that Kim gives. But sometimes it's so frustrating because we know the truth. We know what's going on. And again, their whole world was compartmentalized. They only needed to know their little part in the whole plan. That's so that the person at the very top of the pyramid could control everything. And sometimes it's so frustrating because I just want to be like, have you watched UNN? Have you watched our newscast? Do you know where things currently stand? Because if you did, you wouldn't be saying such ridiculous things. If you wanted to save your government, and it's really too late for that now, but if you wanted to save your government, you would have been talking to us months ago and organizing and restructuring at that time. It's too late now. It's too late. So again, it's going to be an interesting news week. We'll see what happens here. In the World Situation Report, Kim did mention a bunch of those telescopes and the locations. I encourage you guys to look up this information. I actually did too. When I was listening to this back, obviously I didn't have a chance to do that while we were live on the news. But afterward, I'm looking at these telescopes and I'm seeing the technology that was being used. So this is what I'm talking about when I say, do your own research. Don't just believe us because we said it on a podcast or we said it on a newscast. It's up to you now to take the information. Because when you fully believe it, and not just because it came out of someone's mouth, then you are a great resource to help other people. And that's what we need. And if you like what you heard, even if you didn't like what you hear, but if you believe it's truth, on today's podcast, I encourage you to share this episode with someone you care about. Share the whole podcast. It's free, right? People can subscribe. You can also subscribe to get a lot more content at unitednetwork.tv. That includes access to all the UNN newscasts, our complete world situation reports with Kim, original series, health and wellness videos. So check that out. And if you want to connect with us and chat, do that kind of stuff, we are on Telegram. There are links in the episode description, so you can check that out. But we do have 3 channels, actually 2 channels and 1 group I want to tell you about. We have CARE General Updates channel. That's about all things restoration for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. We have United Network News channel, and that's where we post links to our newscasts and our in-depth field messenger reports. So sometimes we have a shorter version of the field messenger reports on the news, and then the longer version is released through the app. And by the way, if you access the field messenger stories through this Telegram channel, then you can watch the field messenger reports for free. And it's a longer version, so it's more detailed. So be sure to check that out. And then if you're interested in becoming a field messenger, we would love that. We would love to be able to help you out and to work with you on your stories. And for that kind of interaction with us, then you need to check out UNN Field Messenger Group, again, on Telegram. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.